secure $1 billion pledge from the late Sushma Swaraj, which accounted for almost 25% of the overall pledge that we received globally for the post-quake reconstruction. So I didn't expect to be nostalgic, but thank you for that reminder of the full scope and promise of the India-Nepal partnership. One of the most amusing quotes in international relations is from a former Mexican president, Porfirio Diaz, in the late 19th century, who talks about his country's fate. He says, "Poor Mexico, so far from God and so close to the United States." Many countries, many small countries with large, powerful neighbors, sometimes perhaps feel the same. But deep down, they know that having a large market at your doorstep, a strong socio-cultural bond at the people's level, fluid borders, major source of humanitarian aid and development finance is actually a very good thing. In development economics, this is well documented. It's called neighborhood spillovers, and it can be a huge blessing, especially if the smaller country is landlocked and lagging. Globally, if neighbors grow by 1%, contiguous countries tend to grow by 0.4%, but landlocked countries grow by 0.7%. So this is a stylized fact from development economics. If you are a coastal economy, you tend to serve the world. If you are a landlocked country, you tend to serve neighbors. So this, I think, sets the context of the larger frame of India-Nepal cooperations. But these partnerships have to be managed well through enlightened political leadership, informed dialogues, and skillful coordination. Today's development conclave is an example of that, and a vibrant track too with academia, think tanks, media, civil society. I think the process can be nudged and accelerated. India, very much on the world stage now, as has already been highlighted. Population-wise, this kind of overtake China this year in the year 2023. It's 45 times larger than Nepal in terms of headcount. In terms of the aggregate economic size, it's 90 times bigger. So in per capita terms, it's twice as rich. But the challenge for us is to pursue sovereign reciprocity in a structurally asymmetric relationship. And this, for India, would mean honoring its great power aspirations. I often refer to the South Asian Monroe Doctrine in terms of acknowledging its spheres of interest and influence, vulnerabilities associated with the rising economy, including its very legitimate security concerns. For Nepal, this means faster economic development, straddling the hurdles posed by landlockedness in a manner respectful of its sensibilities. So what are those priorities that can bind us even more strongly? I probably have an economist's bias, but I'd love to see much more, and this has already begun, of course, on broad connectivity, on broadening modes of connectivity and thinning our borders. So this is, again, trade and investment issues, reducing non-tariff barriers. Prime Minister Modi in 2014 addressing our parliament spoke of HIT, highways, infoways and transways. I reminded him last summer when I met him in person at the Kautilya Conclave that the mantra is still relevant and we need to do much more on this, and obviously things have begun. The electric railway from Raxaul to Kathmandu, when it happens, will be as big a game changer, as transformative as the Gauchar Airport and the 80% of the East-West highway that India built in Nepal. The need to connect with Indian growth poles through expressways, through expanded air routes. I don't know at this stage how many cities and towns in India have a population of more than 1 million, but I can easily estimate that it would exceed about 100. And I think getting those air routes established to be very important. The National Waterway 1 from Haldia to Banaras, can we bring it up to Gandaki or Koshi? All that, again, has an economic basis. If neighbors' transit infrastructure improves from the 25th to the 75th percentile in a global sample, half of the disadvantage associated with landlockedness is lifted. So this is really profound. The second theme I'd like to see much more work done is on augmenting productive capabilities, augmenting production. This is again an investment theme. I assume Ambassador Karna will be probing us on this, so I'll leave my discussion of this for that session. But the global value chains, the industrial enclaves, the Make in India initiative, and how Prime Minister Modi was proudly declaring last summer that India has abolished 1,500 laws and 30,000 compliances to make India a manufacturing hub. And very recently we heard, and this was something not quite expected to happen this fast, iPhones are now being manufactured in India, which is again a proxy that reflects so many of the complex industrial capabilities. The third is on the trade of clean energy. Clean electricity is the linchpin of all net zero paths. As one journalist put it memorably, you must make electricity clean, you make much more clean electricity, and you make almost everything run on electricity. There, I think Nepal and India are both well poised, but we need to do much more. Nepal stands at around 2,300 megawatts of clean hydropower generation so far. Our potentials are much bigger. India's is at 408 gigawatts, but only 11.5% of that is hydro. And our good friend Arvind Mishra, the energy expert, pointed this out to me, that it's that demand diversity in India that suits very well for Nepal. In November, the peak demand in Delhi starts at around 7 p.m. and lasts 1 hour, whereas in May, it starts at 8 p.m. and continues till midnight. So this is the peak energy sort of diversity, the seasonal generational imbalances that we're able to cater through trade. There's also issues about short-lived climate pollutants and this combined menace of climate change that we have to deal with together as part of the regional commons. An area of great excitement for me personally, and this is something that we haven't worked on much, is this massive application and replication of mass socioeconomic innovations that are going on in India. So in Nepal, we tend to be proud that for a poor country, our welfare state is fairly generous. 4% of GDP we spend, but this is old school cash transfers to the elderly, to widows, to Dalit children, and all that. The scale of ambitious, innovative sort of gamut that we see being unleashed in India through the JAM, the Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile, Ayushman Bharat, the cheap health insurance scheme for almost 50 crore people in digital India, cheap access to the internet, being the Bharat interface for money, Sachin also referred to this. Even a program on urban poverty, street vendors, Atmanirbhar Nidhi, that covers 50 lakh vendors across India, the aspirational district program, the Udan scheme on connecting folks with each other, Jal Jeevan's mission on the piped water, and something that excited me, which was the Swamitva Yojana, mapping of houses in rural areas, 1.5 lakh villages surveyed by drones with property cards issued for folks covering 37,000 square kilometers. This is the kind of the socioeconomic schemes that we could easily apply and replicate here in Nepal. And we would love to learn more through our work as part of the sort of T20 process, the think tank conduits to really learn more and apply many of these lessons in Nepal. If India can do it for 1 billion people, surely it's a much more manageable ambition for a 30 million economy. Finally, regional forms and popular, I would dwell much more on this. Things are quite clear. Strengthening SARC, the sub-regional initiatives, BBI and BIMSTEC, but so many issues in this region that transcend national capabilities, where sub-regional and regional cooperation is a must. Ecology, air pollution, pandemics, migration, human trafficking, where the regional externalities, the public externalities, both negative and positive, can only be tackled through cooperation of more than one country. There are geopolitical winds and nudges. Recently I posted a little map on Twitter, which got a lot of reaction. And what struck me there, and the point I was trying to hammer was, half of India's 700 million people actually live in states that border Nepal or are very close to Nepal, possibly within 60 to 70 minutes of flying distance from Kathmandu. On the northern side, half of China, which is separated by the the famous Huan Wong line pointed out in 1935, only 6% of people. So this means the modes of connectivity between our northern neighbor and the southern neighbor have to be very carefully handled. Maybe air connectivity is the preferred mode to the north, whereas both water, rail, road, the deepening of ties, plus air, of course, would have to be pursued to connect us more densely with India. And let me conclude. I started with the Mexican quote, but let me conclude with something quite profound that the father of the current Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar, Mr. K. Subramaniam, wrote in 1986, "In the long run, the imperatives of geography, cultural affinities, international politics will bring home to our neighbors the facts of life and of realpolitik." The facts of life and of realpolitik. I think we are at that moment and ready and poised to really take on this much more ambitious agenda in the area of economic and social transformation. Thank you.